Hello, and welcome to my channel. This is your host, Nancy Johari, and today we're going to work on a Steampunk Fairy. I decided to use a Never After High doll for this, but, well, I had gotten this head a while ago in a lot of heads, and I ended up getting a different body. Obviously, they don't match. The other issue is there's stains on this head. Poor thing has been through the ringer. She's definitely needing a new outlet, a paint job. So, let's get started. So the main thing is making sure that we have a skin tone that'll match these two up. So we're not going to go with the skin tone that she already is. But because she's a fairy, I also wanted really big fairy ears. I don't know why. I think a lot of it is I had watched Delightful's Autumn Maple doll, and I really just was in the mood to do a fairy, but I wanted to do a steampunk one. So I looked up a lot of different inspiration. So taking some copper wire, I tried to poke some holes directly, or poke it directly into the head, and I did kind of ended up having to use a pin to poke a hole first, and then just shove, I got it in. Twisted around, getting out. Then I used a pin to poke, pushed it in, tried to push it in, go in. There it goes. And then twist it around on the inside to keep it from coming out. I kind of ended up having to do it off camera. Oh wait, there it is. Then taking a pair of pliers, I twisted the wire and trimmed off the excess and put it at an angle that I liked. Repeat on the other side. Fortunately, this copper wire is, while it's very sturdy, it does kind of bend really easy. But it was the best I had on hand at the time. It was the smallest, one of the smallest ones I had on hand that I knew would really do the job well. Try to put it, when you twist it, try to put it at the same angle as the other ear. And well, I realized at some point that part of the first armature needed to be trimmed off. Once you're happy with it, take some epoxy sculpt, put on your gloves, and mix it 50-50. Takes a little bit of mixing. It's kind of like a silly putty type of consistency, but it's really good. I really like this stuff. And the first pass is basically just put it on. I think I actually did most of the sculpting on this particular doll in one pass. Maybe two. I think one though. You don't have to do it all in one pass like I do though. Take as many passes as you need. And that wire's still sticking out, so I trimmed it off because part of it didn't stay inside like as well as I thought it would. But now we've got it. And now the problem with these gloves is they're really bumpy, so they're leaving texture all over these poor ears. So let's take those gloves off and use some water and my bare fingers to smooth it out. I suggest getting smooth gloves for sculpting with. Anyway, since I had extra, I went ahead and took it and began doing some body modifications. I put a slope on the back for the wings to sit, because yes, she's going to have wings. She's a fairy. And I enhanced her chest. I decided that she needed a bigger chest. Try to smooth it out also with water as much as possible. I also added some to the hips and to the butt area too. Taking snakes of epoxy, I added details to the ears. And smoothed it out as much as I could. I also took the handle of a paintbrush and made an indent for the actual ear to look like it was going in. Because, you know, that's the whole point of an ear. And I try to make it look as good as possible. Make it as flush to the skin, to the head as good. I took up a little bit extra, refined the shape till I was happy with it, and repeated the process on the other side. Once I was happy with it, I smoothed it all out so that the ears all looked like it was all one piece of clay, as much as I could. And, well, that wire's still poking out. Let's cover it up with a little more epoxy. I had a little bit left anyway. And then I used a sculpting tool to put the details back in that I lost while I was doing that. I'm very happy with how she came out, though. Once the epoxy is completely cured, go ahead and drill mark the back of your doll where the hinges are going to sit, and drill a hole with the Dremel tool. Then taking the flesh color acrylic paint that I wanted, I added water and acrylic paint to a makeup sponge and started dabbing it on the doll. It took 2, maybe 3 coats to make it completely opaque. Take your time with this. This is one way to make your skin smooth if you're not using powder and you don't have an airbrush. I do have an airbrush, I just didn't want to break it out for this project. It was cold outside. Once the body's completely coated, use a piece of string and hang it up somewhere so it can dry. Once you've got the skin to where you want it, take some Duraclear matte varnish, mix it with a little bit of water, and apply it to the head, the ears, and the body. I took 2 coats of this stuff, just to protect the paint. Don't forget to do the body too. Once the varnish is dry, take it outside and spray it with a coat of Mr. Super Clear. Then, take out the hair color of your choice. In my case, I used Bad Romance. I had gotten this a couple years ago from Doll Planet. And I took my rerouting tool, which is basically an X-Acto knife handle with a needle with the eye cut open at an angle in it, inserted in it. I took my hank of hair, folded it in half, cut it in half, because I was kind of going for a shorter hairstyle. I ended up still going a little too long. Hook it over the eye of the needle that's been cut open, and stab. Something just so satisfying about doing a reroute. I can't explain it. It's just, if you're having a bad day, sometimes just taking a doll and taking it apart just to put it back together again is so satisfying. I kept going around and around, and oh, my rerouting needle broke, so let's take out a new one. Put it into the handle of your reroute tool, tighten it up, and yes, this happens a lot. And take a pair of wire clippers, try to cut it. Okay, I scored it. Third time's a charm, maybe? There. Here we go. And resume stabbing the head and adding more hair. Now it's time to do the part. So taking a little bit that was at the beginning where the part begins, I folded it into the right place. And, well, I've already gone through a whole package of Bad Romance, so let's take out some more. I cut it in half from the second package and resumed doing the part, or decided to start the part rather. I started from the back on the first half because for some reason I just like doing that. And here's that half all done. So I don't lose track of it. I went ahead and used a twisty tie to pull it to the one side and keep it out of the way so that when I go to bundle it later, I still won't lose track. You don't want to lose track of that part because it makes it a little bit harder once you go to set the style. That's one nice part of the part filled in. Time to fill in the other side. And at this point, my needle was already bent. It hadn't broken yet, but I didn't want to use another needle. So I just kept going. I'll use them until they break. Seriously. I know I probably shouldn't, but you know, you only have so many needles in the box. And there it is, all done. Don't worry if it looks sparse in the back. When it's styled, you won't even see it. Taking some galaxy glue that I also got from the doll planet, I put some in the head, took a brush and squished it around to coat all the plugs. You have to make sure you get all the plugs, otherwise you can lose them when you go to brush the hair later or comb it. And I didn't put in quite enough glue, so I put in a little bit more and squished it around again. I just want to make sure I had enough in there. Once that's dry, bundle it up in a spare cloth and using some pins to mask off the hairline. And well, I also use a ponytail holder to hold it out of the way. You also want to keep the ears out. Take some Mr. Super Clear and give it a couple coats outside. Don't forget a respiratory mask. At first I tried pastels, but the pastels were not building up. I really need to either crush them or maybe switch to a new set of pastels. Not sure which. And so I started blushing my doll. I like doing contouring around the hairline. I also added some color to the inside of the ears to give it a little contrast to the outside of the ears. Blush the lips, the nose, the chin, under the cheeks, and then I blushed over the cheeks with a different color. You know, it gives it a little bit more of a lifelike look to the doll. And if you make a mistake, keep a kneaded eraser handy. You'll see me using it a lot. And every time I lift it up, it's because I'm blowing off excess. Because when I use my my pressed powder cosmetics, it really goes everywhere really quick, so I have to be careful. Then taking a watercolor pencil in light brown, I decided to sketch out the features first to try to get a feel for where I was going. And this way it also erases off a little bit easier if you make a mistake. I filled in some lines around the eyes, filled in determined the shape of the eyeliner that I wanted to do, and of course the shape of the eye and the direction she was looking at. I decided to give her make her look off to the side. Gives her a little bit of a sly look, I think. Taking a brush and some more powder in a light pink, I went ahead, or a light brown, I went ahead and started the shape of the eyebrows. Then I took a watercolor pencil and began really getting that look in. Because she has red hair, I gave her red eyebrows to match. I added a little bit of hairs with the tip of the pencil. And when I went a little too wild, I used a kneaded eraser to erase it and try again. Now using brown, I'm going to start filling in the top of the eye to give it a little bit of shading and contrast up there. And because I'm giving her brown eyes, I'm going to use a lighter shade of brown at the bottom. Get the lighter shade of brown on the bottom of the eye. Maybe use a darker brown to outline the eye. And I just kept building up the color until I built it up enough that I was happy with it for this layer. Sorry about the camera angle. This is a new camera, by the way. It's also a little bit fuzzy. I've ordered another new camera and I'm hoping that this next one will be better. This one's a good camera, but I think it was made more for being outside, like a GoPro. I also darkened the nostrils, gave it a little highlight to the top of the lips and underneath the eyebrows. And of course filled in the eye whites around in the corners of the eye. Once you stop building up color, it's time for another coat of Mr. Super Clear. But first, eyeshadow. Yay! Yeah, that looks pretty good. Gives her a bit of a smoky eye look, don't you think? This first coat of Mr. Super Clear really got me pretty far, actually. I added a little bit more eyeshadow to the top of the eyes. Little more highlights here and there with a white pencil. And since I had everything out, I went ahead and blushed the joints on the doll. It just makes it look a little bit more realistic. You might notice that the palms of the hands are a lighter shade than the tops. That's because when you look at somebody who has a darker skin tone, their palms and the soles of their feet tend to be paler than the tops of their hands. It's because, let's face it, most of the time, how often do we put our palms up towards the sun? I wanted as realistic a look in that regard as I could get. So I continued blushing around the collar and the shoulder joints. Back from another coat of Mr. Super Clear, and back to trying to whiten up those eyes a little bit more. Adding a little bit of contrast to the top of the eye. There's just something about this process that's really just so much fun. I added a little bit more pink. This time I did add pink pastel to her lips because I didn't like the look of the eyeshadows on her lips. Added more to her eyebrows to darken them up a little bit more. And I took a black to start on the eyeliner and the eyelashes. Instead of 3D lashes this time, I decided to go ahead and work on my eyelash drawing. I can't explain why. Her eyelashes came out really nice and delicate looking in the end. But most of the time I still like the look of a 3D lash a little bit better. I can't explain why. But that's just me. But at the same time, I still want to get better at creating fluffy eyelashes that are drawn in or painted in. Again, kneaded eraser, keep it handy. I got a little wild, I guess, in a couple areas with the eyelashes, and so I decided to try it again. So I gave it a little bit more blush of the eyeshadow again, and tried again on the eyelashes and the eyeliner. And this time I think I got it just right. And maybe not. Third time's the charm? There we go. I know you can't really see it very well with this camera, but hopefully you'll be able to see it in the end pictures. Got the bottom lashes in and the bottom eyeliner in. I didn't do all the way across just because it looks a little bit better sometimes when you just do part way. But I did do a waterline also, I believe, in a slightly different skin tone, but it doesn't really... It kind of shows up, kind of doesn't. Just looks more of a smoky, like a smoky eye. Did the eyelashes on the other side. For me, sometimes it's just turning the doll upside down helps. I can't explain it. More whites, a little bit of details on the irises, and going back and cleaning up. Use a white color watercolor pencil to add some highlights to the underneath the eyelashes and around the eye. After another coat, back to it. I was trying, I think, originally to just do this all in watercolor pencil and pastels, but sometimes it'll only build up so much. I have seen other artists do it completely in pencil and pastel. Echelon is really good at just being patient and just building and building and building. I don't know how she does it. A little more eyeliner. Darkening up around the iris, the outside of the iris itself. Adding in the pupil. so you know where she's looking towards. Time for another coat. Oh, wait, first, details on the lips. I put some lines on the top lip, the bottom lip, and in the crease to kind of give it a little bit more contrast to the lip. And now it's time for gouache. I love these paints. They can be reactivated with water, so they're like a spongy watercolor. But they don't run everywhere, as long as you don't water it down too much. And I obviously need a better light source. Sorry. So using two different colors of brown for contrast, I took up the color a notch on the iris of the eyes, and then started filling in the eye whites to brighten them up. And because my white was a little bit runny because I just added water to it because it was really dried out, I had to take some of it off, but I ended up using it to kind of add a little bit more details to the eyes. Or at least I tried to. With another lighter color, I also added in little lines at the bottoms of the eyes to really bring out the details of the eyes. Then using black, I put in the pupils again. And darkened up around the edge of the iris, trying to be as careful of the white as I could. I also took a little bit of a gray watercolor pencil and used my brush to lift off some of the pigment to put it on top of along the top of the white, just to give it a little bit more depth. Pupils. I also decided that the pink was just not standing out enough on her lips. Gotta do the eyeliner first though. Gotta make sure that's really good and that you can really see those eyelashes. But take a small brush and take your time. Add a little bit more detail to the iris. And of course to the bottom lashes. Put in my eye shines. And since my palette has a nice red color and I've discovered that the gouache paint still looks almost like a pastel when you use it, I used it also for the lips to make them a nice red. A little more white on the eye, a little bit of gray. That's the gray pencil. There we go. Just take it slow. A little bit more detail, and since the gray kind of ran a little bit, I added a little bit more white to the bottom of the eye white once that had dried a little bit. I may have also given it another coat of super clear. Just keep painting, just keep painting, just keep painting until you're happy. Sorry. Using a little bit more brown, I added some more details, but I used this contrasting color to give it some highlights in the iris. No, you can't really see it on camera. And then I also darkened around the edge of it. Taking some red gouache, I went ahead and added, repainted her lips a little bit. I just really wanted her to have a really nice set of red lips. And the cool thing about gouache is it dries and it looks so soft, it looks like it's a pastel. Which is exactly what I was going for. Once her smile was the way I liked it, I added another coat of Mr. Super Clear. Well, after I finished the face up. I think this was the last time I was doing stuff. Also, you can use a little bit of water to go around the edges to take off any excess that if it gets a little wild. Going back over the eyeliner and lashes again. Just really wanted those to really, really look nice. Pupils too. I think next time I'll try to remember to do a little bit of an extra highlight around the edge of the pupil. And using my watercolor pencil, I added some more highlights. And then taking a gray watercolor pencil, I lifted some pigment off and added a little bit of depth to the top of the highlights. Did the bottom eyeliner with the paint, gouache paint, and then also, of course, the bottom lashes. I also added a little bit of highlights to her eyebrows. I was in a playful mood that day. A little bit more red also to her eyebrows. And here, her face up is all done. After 2 coats of Mr. Super Clear were dry, I went ahead and gave her a little bit of Liquitex gloss varnish on her eyes and lips. I don't know what it is. There's just something so satisfying about making the eyes and lips shiny. It's just so much fun. Once it's all dry, take her hair back out of the hair burrito. It's time to style. Make sure you get out all the pins. One pin was hidden with a little piece of the cloth. She did have one little hair stuck, but I managed to get it off without ruining the face up. Using boiling water, I went ahead and set the style. For the part, anyway. It's not a complete style set, but it tamed the hair nicely. I wipe off the excess water with a towel and put her aside to dry. Once she's all dry, I took down her hair. I did try to take off the twisty ties by untwisting them, but that just didn't work, so I ended up just pulling them off. Good thing your hair was already glued in. Then I took out a comb and I combed her hair and let it finish drying. It was still a little damp at this point. Once it was all dry, I went ahead and decided to give her 2 side braids and to give her a haircut. I did make her hair a little too long. I did a 4-strand braid. I learned how to do this back when I worked at Subway for making party subs. It's very much a trial of patience in her. Just taking your time with it. Braiding nylon hair can be really difficult because it is really slippery. Once you get to the length you want, secure the end with the elastic tie. Since I'm going with a shorter hairstyle, I went ahead and secured it a little on the short side. Don't worry, I saved the excess that I cut off and put it in a Ziploc baggie to use on another reroute. Did the braid on the other side. And at this point I was thinking that the long hair really did look nice, and I was kind of considering doing like a Princess Leia type hairstyle with it. And the one braid I did make a little longer than the other. Oops. But I did go ahead and correct that when I realized it. There we go. I pushed up the elastic a little bit, and there we go. I trimmed off the excess. And for anything that I trim off too short, I did bring the trash can over. First, I did consider just putting her hair up in a bun in the back, but I didn't like the way it looked. Okay, Time to just comb it out and give her a trim like I planned in the first place. Use a pair of sharp scissors. I got my pair from Target, but Sally Beauty also has really good hair scissors that are meant for cutting hair. This set of scissors was meant for cutting hair as well. You can find a really good deal if you look around. Walmart, I think, also sells these too. Take your time. Use your fingers just like they do at the hair salon to kind of help even it up. Just keep working with it until you're happy. Sometimes it's better to leave it a little longer or go longer than you intend to. I ended up going a titch shorter than I wanted. I even up the ends. And there! She's really cute. Now it's time to add her wings. Okay, so taking my hinges and my precision screwdriver and the 2 screws that came with the hinges. Well, it came with 4 screws, but I just used 2 of them. I overlapped the hinges, put the screw in the hole, and began using my screwdriver to screw it in. I did end up doing some of it off camera. Once it was as nice and tight and not going anywhere, it provides the articulation for the wings. Neat, huh? I learned this from Delightful. Her Dragon series is excellent. Now, drawing out a pattern on paper with a Sharpie, I cut the same pattern out onto plastic after tracing it with the Sharpie. Believe it or not, this was a Monster High package. Using a hairdryer, I go ahead and try to get as much of the wrinkle out as possible and shape the wing. Once I'm happy with that, I line it up with the hinge, take a Sharpie, and mark right where I want to put the hole. So I took it again for reference, mark it, mark the other wing to try to make sure that they're even, trim off any excess, heat up my awl, and stab. I did end up making these holes a little too small though for the bolts that I need to use later on. I ended up taking a Sharpie after that was done and veins on the wings. I did make some mistakes as I was tracing. Oops. That's okay. I'll correct it later with some gel paint. Gel nail polish, rather. Since these are plastic, you can use nail products on them. So I took a Chiara Sky non-wipe top coat, you can use whatever brand you want, and Born Pretty chrome powder. I put on a layer of top coat, added the cured it in my UV lamp, then added the chrome powder and another coat of top coat. Taking some gold gel polish, some alcohol, I traced the veins on the outsides of the wings, and then used the same glue that they use for rhinestones on nails to secure some cogs to the wings. Time for clothes. Okay, so I took some black velvet and pinned it wrong side out, just 2 small rectangles, around the doll leg. Then sewed down, trimmed off the excess and sewed down that line, making sure it was nice and snug. The velvet's nice and stretchy, so you'll keep the stretch if you take a zigzag stitch. Once that was all done, I went ahead and trimmed off any excess from around the seam, peeled it off the doll, which turns it right side out, and then put it right back on. Trimmed off the excess at the top, and well, I did accidentally make one longer than the other. Oops. Then, taking a pattern from DJ Requiem that I got from Etsy, I made a skirt. I did try it with the waistband and a drawstring. You have to be really careful though. I sewed through the ribbon somehow at some point, and I ended up having to remove it. Gather up the skirt and secure it to your elastic band or to the drawstring band. Pin it in place and sew. At this point, I had changed to the elastic off camera. Putting the fabric wrong side out, put the back seam together, pin it in place, and sew. Don't sew all the way up. I did use a little bit of elastic that was too long, but if you use a shorter piece of elastic, you might be able to get away with just an elastic band. Try it on the doll. Then put pins where you want to sew the snaps in place. There. The snaps are on. It looks really cute, and I also put a ribbon in the crotch to keep it from sliding up. I just put a piece in the front and a piece in the back. Might have to play with it a little. Now for the top. Taking another piece of velvet, I went ahead and fitted it, cut it in the shape I wanted. I want a backless top because of the hinges. We don't want to interfere with that. So trying it up against the doll, I discovered it was too long, so I shortened it. Then I took some Easy Steam interfacing. Take the paper off the back and stick it down. Trim the excess. Taking the paper off the other side, I took a piece of cotton cloth and stuck it to the back. Then trim. I also refined the shape a little bit at this point because I realized things didn't look quite completely even. Oops. Once you're happy with it, go ahead and make the bottom permanent with a hot iron. Now taking some hooks that are meant for bras, but well, this works great for corsets too. I took 2 bigger loops for the top and smaller loops for the sides. Sew them in place. It took 3 on each side, maybe 4. I think it was just 3 though. Repeat on the other side. Once that's all sewn, for the top, take the bigger loops and secure them in place. There. Now taking a bit of ribbon, we're going to lace it onto the doll. The top loops went through okay, but I ended up having to take a needle because I couldn't get it to go in. So I took a needle. It's just not working. Taking a needle, I threaded the ribbon through, crisscrossed the top parts over the top of the corset, the backless corset, and then went down the sides. The rest of the sides crisscrossed underneath the hinge. This way it doesn't mess with the articulation. Once you have it all nice and snugged up, tie a bow and trim the excess. I try to keep my loops small because otherwise they go really big really fast. Now she needs some shoes. I found these boots on eBay, and so I just took a couple dowels and some black acrylic paint. I gave it 2 coats. The reason being, as cute as these boots were, the paint wasn't going with my color palette. Maybe I should have done them in brown, but honestly, I really like black, and I don't have a lot of browns on hand. Make sure you coat the soles and the heels too. The heels has a really nice little chain link type design on the back. I want to bring that out with some silver paint. Once that's dry, take acrylic paint and dry brush over the details. I use silver for the heel, for the studs along the side of the boot for where the laces go through, or grommets rather. I also went over any mistakes that I accidentally made by going too wild with my dry brush. Taking some color changing paint, I went ahead and painted her bootlaces. This gives them a nice purple shimmer, and they kind of change different colors in different lights. It was acrylic though, so just seemed to bring it all together. Using a hand drill, drill holes in the ears to put in her earrings. I took a key, a jump ring, and a bit of jewelry wire. Here's where it goes into the head. It takes a little bit of patience to push all the way through the epoxy sculpt into the head. Take your time. Once the earring's assembled, twist together the jewelry wire, trim off any excess, taking a pair of pliers, use it to push it in. Takes a little bit of finagling, but you'll get it in. So cute. Now, with taking a bit of ribbon and 2 more jump rings, I sewed them to the end of the ribbon to make a belt. Then I took 2 cogs, put them on jump rings, and fed them over the belt. Fed the other part of the end of the ribbon through the 2 jump rings, then fed it back through one to snug it up. Works just like a real snug up belt. I forget what it's called. Sorry. Time to put on her shoes. I also made a necklace out of another cog and a key and a bit of embroidery floss. Embroidery thread, rather. Now time to fix the wings. I took a hand drill and first marking it with a Sharpie because I didn't quite make them quite far enough apart. I widened the holes a little bit. Here she is with her earrings, and I used nuts and bolts to attach the wings to the hinges. Here she is with her necklace. And off camera, I also used an aluminum can and made her a pair of goggles with that and a little bit of plastic, some more, and I finished the plastic off with the same technique that I used for her wings. Heated up her head with a hairdryer to put it back on, and added her goggles. Here she is, all done and together. I really like how she came out. I think we'll call her Piper. I'm sorry about the background, but I didn't have time for a photo shoot this time. If you really like this doll, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.